well. Today I'm excited, yes excited, to be filming my least favorite books of 2015 because I don't know about you guys, but I have an odd obsession with watching videos where people talk about books that they don't like. It's just nice to mix it up when in general people are doing different variations of favorites videos. I really enjoy watching these. I will say, and I know I'm not going to do the whole you can like this book, that's fine spiel. We're all adults and we can understand that two reasonable people can like and dislike the same book. That's fine. So let's go ahead and get into them. This is in no particular order and of course no spoilers. So first up is Audition by Ryu Murakami. Now many of you may have heard of this because of the very famous and infamous movie adaptation of this, which I still have not seen for some reason. I had been holding off watching that movie. It's definitely a cult classic because I wanted to read the book first, and I get the impression the movie is going to be a lot better than the book. This takes place in Japan where a man's wife passes away, so he holds sort of a fake audition for a movie, but in reality he's looking to see if any of these women could possibly be his future wife. Things go very, very badly to say the least, and the writing in this book was not bad whatsoever. It was fine. It was just the plot was incredibly lackluster. It took forever for this book to get going, and then once it did, the climax for me just wasn't even that satisfying. Next was a pretty big disappointment for me, and that was the Magpies by Mark Edwards. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while. This is a psychological thriller that takes place in London. A young couple has just purchased their first home together in this beautiful apartment complex, and then they begin to be harassed and antagonized at very increasing levels by their neighbors. This book was just very mediocre all around. It was very obvious who was antagonizing them. There was no mystery surrounding that, and then there was also no twist at the end. And that's not to say that twists are always necessary in psychological thrillers, but because it was so apparent who was antagonizing them, I thought, okay, well maybe it's so obvious because there's gonna be a good twist at the end, and then there's not. So, and I don't even feel bad saying that because I just wouldn't recommend checking out this book whatsoever. So yeah, just very average. If you're into psychological thrillers, I would go ahead and skip this one. Next is Asylum by Patrick McGrath. This is about a woman. It takes place in the 1950s. Her husband oversees this insane asylum and they live on the property where it's located, and she slowly, or actually quite quickly, starts to fall for one of the patients there. When I heard this plot, I thought this is gonna be an ideal kind of book candy, guilty pleasure for me, but the POV for this book, it's told from the point of view of another very dull psychologist at the facility, so I just was never once engaged or really interested in this story because of the point of view. If it had been just straightforward from her point of view, I think that would have been better. I thought it would have been really interesting if it was from the patient that she falls for, his point of view, but I thought could have been a very fun plot. Well, my version of fun, I guess I should say, just ended up being pretty dull for me. Then we have The Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. Now I will say, I thought the plot of this was incredibly unique. This is about, actually, I don't know how to explain this plot without spoiling it, and most of you probably read this, so there's no need to do that. But overall, for the majority of this book, I did not like the romance, and at its core, at least for book one, I don't know what the rest of the series is like, but this is essentially a romance novel. So given that I didn't like the romance, it was very difficult for me to get into this book. Or I did not think that the writing was awful, but at the same time, I really can't see myself continuing on with the series. If you guys let me know that the next in the series is just worlds better, maybe I'll go ahead and check it out, but overall, I just found this one pretty lackluster. Then we have the Shatter Me series by, I think it's Tahira Mafi, I'm blanking on the author's name. Now I did read all three of these, so clearly I didn't despise them, but I think the reason I finished the series is because the first book in the series, Shatter Me, was quite a guilty pleasure and it was fun for me in that way, but then a certain twist occurs that I just thought was so laughably terrible. It has to do with one of the characters, and this twist was just so unfathomable and so unrealistic and just didn't really fit with the plot, at least my opinion. And then once that twist happened, I just ended up really not liking books 2 and 3. Book 1, guilty pleasure. It was fun for what it was for me, but did not like books 2 or 3 whatsoever. And I am curious for those of you who really, because I know there's so many people who just adore this series, do you adore it in a guilty pleasure kind of way, or do you adore it in a this is my favorite series of all time kind of way? Because I would be interested to hear. And finally, we have Into the Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black. Now, Holly Black, as I've said before, has been one of my favorite young adult authors of all time, ever since I think I was probably 14, maybe, when I read Tithe by her, and then I also also really adored Valiant. I know a lot of people didn't like that series by her, but I thought she was such a unique voice within the young adult community. Then Into the Darkest Part of the Forest comes out. This is a young adult fae, fairy fantasy about a world where people are kind of aware that fae exist within this small town, and it could have been written by anybody besides Holly Black, and I would have been none the wiser. With the Ironside series, the ones I previously mentioned, I thought her characters and her writing style and the plots felt so different from everything else you would see within the young adult community, and this just felt so average, and it could have been written by any other author in the young adult community and I would not have noticed. So by no means do I think Into the Darkest Part of the Forest was terrible, but for me personally, just because I love Holly Black so much and her writing style and her characters, it was just a really, really big disappointment. So those are my favorite, not my favorite, those are my least favorite books of 2015. So if you agree or disagree with me, please go ahead and let me know. I would love to discuss with you guys. I would also love to hear what your least favorite book of 2015 was. I always, as I said, find that really interesting to hear, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.